Nearly 400 ballistic missiles from Iran were launched against the Israeli cities of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem as part of a military response to the crimes perpetrated by the occupation in the Middle East. And the President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, was sworn in as the first female president of the Mexican nation. In Brazil, the government reported a 58% nationwide drought, the highest in the last 50 years. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Nearly 400 ballistic missiles from Iran were launched against the Israeli cities of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem as part of a military response to the crimes perpetrated by the occupation in the Middle East. The escalation of tensions in the region follows the assassinations of Palestinian resistance leader Ismail Haniyeh and Lebanese Resistance Secretary General Sayed Hassan Nasrallah by the Zionist regime. In regards to Tuesday's attacks, the Israeli Defense Forces confirmed the impact of dozens of missiles on its territory, while warning that the response against Iran will be tough. In several areas, such as Armel, Wadi Ara, and the southern Negev, alert signals were activated and civilians were ordered to evacuate to safe shelters after the Iranian offensive. In this context, the United States President Joe Biden assured from Washington that the U.S. is prepared to help Israel fight Iran by mobilizing its troops in the country. The United Nations report more than 1 million people displaced across Lebanon due to ongoing Israeli bombardment. High Commissioner of the UN Refugee Agency, Filippo Grandi, stated that around 100,000 refugees have arrived in Syria and that the outflow continues. According to the Syrian Red Crescent, more than 60% of the people arriving at Syrian border crossings are children. In this context, the Israeli regime shelled a house in the Ain al-Haliwe Palestinian refugee camp in the southern Lebanon city of Sidon. The attack claimed the lives of 6 Palestinians, half of them children, while several people were wounded. Internal authorities reported in the last hours the use of white phosphorus against the Lebanese people, a chemical prohibited by the international humanitarian law. On Monday afternoon, the Lebanese Ministry of Health reported 95 dead and 172 wounded in Israeli attacks in the last 24 hours.
They are criminals. They don't kill people holding guns and weapons. They kill civilians. They were always like that, criminals.
Also in Palestine on Tuesday, an Israeli airstrike on a tent for displaced people in western Han Yunis killed 7 people, including children, and left a large number of injured. The attack that set a car on fire came as the Zionist regime ramps up its aggressions in Gaza. At the same time, it carries out multiple raids across the occupied West Bank.
This is a shopping place, of course. It is considered a market for the displaced. Suddenly we heard the sound of a big explosion and saw a car on fire. When we went to see what happened, we saw the remains and children lying on the ground. The targeted place is a shopping place full of children and women, and all of them are civilians. The number of martyrs is large. Women and children were in the place.
The Lebanese resistance movement Hezbollah attacked Mossad headquarters near Tel Aviv and other points in Israel. Hezbollah announced the attack with 44 missiles on the Gilot base of the Israeli Military Intelligence Unit 8200 and the Mossad headquarters, which is located on the outskirts of Tel Aviv. So far, 50 missile launches have been carried out from Lebanon, the last of which hit the central region and forced thousands of Israelis to take refuge. According to local media, 6 wounded are reported as a result of the Hezbollah attack in response to the aggression against Lebanon and the genocide in Gaza. In Syria, local authorities reported that the Israeli army continues its aerial aggression with warplanes and drones against several points in Damascus. They also announced that 3 civilians were killed, among them a journalist, Safa Ahmed, leaving 9 others wounded after the missile aggression. On the other hand, the Syrian air defenses said that they responded to the missile and drone attack and shot down most of them, but could not prevent the killing of 3 civilians. And the Foreign Intelligence Service of Russia announces that the West and the Ukrainian regime are planning a chemical weapons attack in conjunction with Syrian terrorists. The Russian Commission in Syria warned on a report that the false positive operation will be conducted in Idlib governorate, as they intend to hold Moscow and Damascus responsible for it right after. The Commission unfolded that terrorists would use drones against the Russian airspace forces in their facilities in order to detonate a chlorine canister. The intelligence service reaffirmed that the staged chemical attacks on Syria won't help the United States and allies in their attempt to undermine Russia's authority in the global south. Meanwhile, the Yemeni armed forces reported to have successfully hit Israeli military positions in the occupied Jaffa.
The Yemeni Armed Forces Air Force targeted a military site of the Israeli enemy in the occupied Jaffa area using a Jaffa drone. Additionally, it targeted military sites in the al-Rashrash area with 4 Samad 4 drones. By the grace of God, both operations achieved their objectives successfully.
Meanwhile, in Turkey, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called on September 30th for the United Nations General Assembly to urgently consider using force in Gaza, invoking the 1950 United for Peace resolution.
Today, protecting Palestine and Lebanon means protecting humanity, protecting peace and the culture of coexistence of different beliefs.
The Turkish president also stressed the importance of protecting Palestine and Lebanon and called on the world to unite against Israel's barbarism.
Today, protecting Palestine and Lebanon means protecting humanity, protecting peace and the culture of coexistence of different beliefs. I invite the Islamic world and all conscientious countries of the world to unite against this modern barbarism. It should be known that every day that the alliance of humanity against Israel is not established, the danger will grow.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hola, soy Aisa García. Tú y yo tenemos una cita cada semana para conocer tradiciones, costumbres, valores, sonidos y ritmos, símbolos y el gran abanico de las expresiones culturales que...
Welcome back. In Mexico, the inauguration of President-elect Claudia Sheinbaum took place on Tuesday, officially becoming the first Mexican female president after she received the presidential badge from Ifigenia Martinez, president of the Chamber of Deputies. This way, Sheinbaum becomes the first Mexican woman president in a ceremony where she thanked President Andrés Manuel López Obrador for his service to the country during his 6 years in office and vowed to further his legacy and continue working for the well-being of Mexicans. The inauguration was accompanied by festive demonstrations and chants for the Morenistas who will lead the change of government. And hours before her swearing-in ceremony, Claudia Sheinbaum made 35 appointments of members of her government who will take office as of this Tuesday. Among those appointed are government officials of outgoing President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, former members of his cabinet, and the ratification of 6 politicians. The head of the Mexican Institute of Industrial Property, the Undersecretary of Government, the head of the Agrarian Attorney General's office, among others, were announced through a press release. Regarding the armed forces, the Undersecretary of National Defense, the Undersecretary of the Navy, and the General Director of the Interoceanic Corridor of the Isthmus of Tehuantepec were announced. And the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, denounced that the attacks on Lebanon, the genocide in Gaza, and the threats against Iran are part of a project of domination and colonization of the Middle East. On Monday, during his program Con Maduro Más, the Venezuelan head of state regretted that the United Nations has entered into what he referred as a vacuum and a process of attrition. In addition, he denounced that the United States is delivering weapons for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to launch a campaign of aggressions in order to dominate the region and take control of the energy resources. Furthermore, President Maduro referred to the wars perpetrated by Washington and its allies against Arab and Muslim countries, aligned with the project of domination that currently has the Tel Aviv regime as its main executor.
They already tried to destroy Syria. They destroyed Libya. In the past, they invented there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and killed 1 million Iraqis. They invaded Iraq. It is a war on the Arab peoples, the Muslim peoples. It is a war to colonize the whole of the known Middle East. What is behind this offensive? The threats against Iraq, the threats against Iran, the criminal attacks on Yemen, the attempt to colonize, to conquer the territory of the Arab people in Lebanon. There is a project of domination and colonization of the Arab, Muslim and Middle Eastern world.
In France, journalist Julian Assange affirmed before the Council of Europe in Strasbourg that if he is free, it is because he declared himself guilty of having done journalism. In his first statements after spending 12 years in the maximum security prison of Belmarsh in the United Kingdom, Assange pointed out that his agreement with the U.S. justice system prevents him from denouncing the country in relation to his extradition request, as well as requesting information about the events that took place. The WikiLeaks founder's statements came a day before the Assembly of the Council of Europe votes on a resolution that adopts him as a political prisoner and warns about the deterrent effect that his arrest could have had on the journalistic profession.
Ladies and gentlemen, the transition from years of confinement in a maximum security prison to being here before the representatives of 46 nations and 700 million people is a profound and a surreal shift. The experience of isolation for years in a small cell is difficult to convey. It strips away one's sense of self, leaving only the raw essence of existence. I am yet not fully equipped to speak about what I have endured, the relentless struggle to stay alive, both physically and mentally.
In addition, Assange reaffirmed that his freedom does not imply that the system worked, since he had to plead guilty for the fact of doing journalism and denouncing U.S. war crimes.
Justice, for me, is now precluded, as the U.S. government insisted in writing into its plea agreement that I cannot file a case at the European Court of Human Rights or even a Freedom of Information Act request over what it did to me as a result of its extradition request. I want to be totally clear. I am not free today because the system worked. I am free today after years of incarceration because I pled guilty to journalism.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.